Valley of Regrets, and many reliable friends, and he was going back to the place he most wanted to be, equipped, he felt it fair to say, with quite an amount of wisdom. Making a small detour to humour an old man was nothing to him. He was getting to see another part of the country, a beautiful part with gentle grassy hills and many fine trees of every sort. What harm could a few final extra recollections of the outside world do to a fellow returning forever to the life he was supposed to live? As he ambled along with his mellow thigh, he spotted about 300 paces ahead a very large stooped figure standing up from the long grass, side of the sheep path. The figure seemed to be looking at the ground and staggering. As Matha approached, the man gave no indication of seeing him. With his head down, the man was swaying and muttering, cursing and jumping. Matha still didn't recognize him, not until he was right up to him. "That's not a bad morning at all now, sir," said Matha, as he prepared to walk around the enormous lunatic. Finally, the figure became aware of him and stopped the ranting. Matha couldn't believe it, as he stared at the enormous man with the long hair, the blue and yellow tunic, the heron skin sack and the spear. There was nobody in the whole country, as far as he knew, who looked like that. Other than the man who had ignored warnings fires to go out for a stroll the night before. Or could it be that Fionn had a deranged twin? The man stared at Matha with a crazed look in his eye. What? What did you say?" "I just said that it was a good day, Fionn Micheál, and now I leave you in peace and be on my way. I am sorry to have disturbed you in your reverie." Fionn was still staring, bullish anger coming into his eyes. "What did you say? How did you know my name?" "It's me, Matha." "What kind of trickster are you?" he yelled. "What torment do you bring?" "Nothing, Fionn. I was just on my way." Before he knew it, Micheál was towering over him. His face was masked in a storming black rage. Matha didn't get another word out before hit him on the side of the head, and he flew off the path to hit the ground 20 feet down the valley beside it. The pain was the worst he'd ever felt. He tried to get up to run, but he was too dizzy. In 2 steps, Micheál was standing over him. With his thumb and forefinger, he picked Matha up by his tunic, twisting it around his neck so he couldn't breathe. Micheál brought him level with his own face, a face that Matha didn't recognize anymore. He yelled so loud that Matha thought his hearing was gone. "You are another who has come to torment me, are you not?" Matha tried to speak, but he could only squeak. Micheál spat the rage into his face and then began hitting him again from underneath with his free hand. Matha could hear crunching. The worst pain. "What did you say?" Tears of blood rolled from his eyes. "Faugh!" yelled Micheál with contempt and flung him on the ground again. Matha couldn't make out much anymore, but he felt the great foot being pressed on his already broken chest, and he could hear the familiar sound of the bronze sword being drawn from its beautifully decorated sheath. He had always admired that so much, never told anyone. It was a strange thing to be thinking as he was about to lose his life. Matha couldn't believe what Darren had done to him. "On this shortcut you will pass through a certain valley," the druid had said casually. "The Valley of Regrets, I believe they call it. For some reason, when you are there, keep a lookout for anything unusual." Darren must have known there. "No," Matha cried with the pain and spat through his teeth. "The curse of 1,000 sleepless nights on you, Darren, for sending me here. And when he kills me altogether, my blood will be on your hands and not his." The blow never came. Instead, Micheál fell down on top of him and multiplied the pain. "Another who has come to torment me, are you not?" Matha tried to speak, but he could only squeak. Micheál spat the rage into his face and then began hitting him again from underneath with his free hand. Matha could hear crunching. The worst pain was now in his chest. Tears of blood rolled from his eyes. "Fa!" yelled Micheál with contempt, and flung him on the ground again. Matha couldn't make out much anymore, but he felt the great foot being pressed on his already broken chest, and he could hear the familiar sound of the bronze sword being drawn from its beautifully decorated sheath. He had always admired that so much, never told anyone. It was a strange thing to be thinking as he was about to lose his life. Matha couldn't believe what Darren had done to him. On this shortcut you will pass through a certain valley, the druid had said casually. The Valley of Regrets, I believe they call it. For some reason, when you are there, keep a look out for anything unusual. Darren must have known that Micheál was out there. Now, Matha cried with the pain and spat through his teeth. The curse of 1,000 sleepless nights on you, Darren, for sending me here. And when he kills me altogether, my blood will be on your hands and not his. The blow never came. Instead, Micheál fell down on top of him and multiplied the pain. Next, Micheál was sitting up in the grass, and as far as Matha could tell, he was wailing like a gloomy hound. After a while, this stopped too, and the words became calmer for a moment. "Matha, my clever and loyal young man, is it you? You're bloody and hammered. Who did this to you? I'll have his life." After a while, Matha lifted his head painfully and turned at a fraction. But in the interval, Micheál had risen to his feet and moved a few paces off, staring at a hill to his left. After another while, Matha tried to sit up. When he wiped his eyes, he could see through the blur that Micheál was now pointing at the hill, although there was nothing there. Just then, a crooked shape appeared beside Micheál. A rough, cloudy-looking man, somewhat disfigured. Maybe his head was on crooked. He sat on a bony horse that looked like it was about to collapse. Micheál didn't seem to see either horse or rider. When the figure spoke, Micheál could hear it though. "You remember me, Micheál, you foul beast?" He spoke with a foreign voice. "Bolcán," cried Micheál feebly. "Is that you? Where are you?" "Me, the King of Gaul, come to your lands merely to rescue my daughter," the man croaked. "With respect, Bolcán, your daughter pursued me here. She came by choice. I did not invite her. And when you came with an army instead of an emissary, what could I conclude but that it was your pride you came to rescue, not your daughter? My only daughter, my darling." The man broke into a crooked scream. "I was driven mad, mad, mad." Micheál said nothing, but just looked down at the ground as he had been doing when Matha came. "And then my reward," the madman continued, "was to be cut down by your hand and left there in the bushes for the scavengers to have their choice of me. My eye!" He clapped his hand over the hole in his face. "A foul grey crow picked it from me. You condemned me to forever wander alone in this land of heathens like a common vagabond." Bolcán raised a club over Micheál. Matha saw it. He didn't warn Micheál. Why should he? In fact, he hoped Bolcán would inflict some measure of the pain that was in his own body now. Bolcán hit out very hard. Micheál stumbled, but the pain didn't draw a sound from him. I am sorry for your state, Bolcán," he said quietly. "What was I to do? If I hadn't slain you, you'd have slain me. That is the way. What was I supposed to do?" "By the gods, I will slay you now," said Bolcán, suddenly gaining a cold focus in his voice that left Matha in no doubt that he intended to do exactly what he said. The large, buckety king pulled a sword from his belt. It was stout and broad, and its lethal, silvery blade was untarnished. There was nothing ghostly about the way he swung it through the air above his head. It whistled wickedly. Even though he had heard all this, Micheál still did not run or duck or do anything at all. It was like he didn't care whether Vulcan killed him. Like maybe he even wanted it. Matha, through all his own soreness and anger, thought it might be best if this did not happen. He slowly lifted himself from the ground. The mad king was holding the sword in his two hands, pulled back over his right shoulder and ready to eat its way into Micheál's bowed tree-trunk neck. Yes, I will kill you here in this accursed valley, where you can spend the rest of time unable to escape the torments. Never more to escape in sleep or alcohol, evermore to be tormented by the wrongs you have done. Matha knew by now that there was no point in shouting at Micheál. He would pay no attention. Instead, Matha found strength in his legs. He walked and then ran. The only thing he could do was attack the unfortunate misery of a horse, whose reins the king had let go of, so as to work the cleaver with both arms. Matha made a mad buzzing sound he'd learned as a child, and pricked the bony hip with the tip of his knife, confirming for the poor animal that it was being set upon by a warble fly. It found strength. Matha got a kick from its rearing hind legs, and then it bolted. Matha could now add an injury to his stomach to his list of troubles, and as he lay groaning on the ground, it took him a few seconds to feel the cold of the body he was lying beside. He turned over to see the one good eye of the king staring at him. The sword was protruding through the king's chest from the way he'd fallen. This was not the kind of memory Matha had hoped to add on his final trip home, but now he would never be able to go anywhere without it. When he got up off the ground, the king and his horse were gone. Matha came to Micheál and said, "Come with me. Let us get you out of this valley before we meet further troubles." He was surprised that Micheál didn't argue or shout or have other plans. He simply walked slowly along with Matha, not talking. Matha reckoned the shortest way out was over the hill to the left, and that was the direction in which he led Micheál. He didn't think anything much of the fact that it was the same direction as Micheál had been pointing in. Matha only realized too late that Micheál was not focused on getting to the top of the hill with him, but on a solitary rowan tree about halfway up. That was what he had been staring at. As they got nearer, and tender words began to reach his ears, he knew that instead of escaping further troubles, he had walked Micheál right into them. He parted the branches of the tree with his blackthorn walking stick to find the source of the softly spoken words. There, hanging by its long black hair from an upper branch, was the head of a white-faced young man, not even as old as Matha himself, with only the startings of soft black hair on his face. Micheál had surely heard the voice from below in the valley, and he certainly knew it well because he crumpled onto his knees before the tree. By the way he stared at the tree trunk, Matha realized that Micheál could not see the head. Again, this misfortune was reserved for him alone. He did not know what ability it was that made him able to see what others couldn't. He knew now this was why the Kenny Droleen had sent him. Droleen had known that whatever little chance Matha had of bringing Micheál out of this, he had more chance of doing so than any of the warriors who were not cursed with such sight and hearing. Matha damned these powers of his and again cursed Droleen. He did not want to see that severed neck that was before him, or the dripping blood, and yet he was compelled and could not look away. Dimna! The sweet face kept calling. How are they all? Conan and Gaul and Diarmid. "They are well," said Micheál, "and my soulmate, my brother, Fiachna, he is well. Fionn said nothing. Save me, continued the head gently. Take me home, if you please. Where are you, boy? Show yourself, said Micheál. I want to see you again. It is me, Insa, said the boy. I know it is you. The boy I fostered and brought up as my own. How could I ever forget your dewy voice? I ought never have set to train you as a soldier. In my heart I always knew that a poet or a teacher was your calling. Instead I sent you to drill to make a man of you. And let you be put to waste in a battle that you were not fit for. It's all right, father, said Insa. But I only wish to come home now. I am tired. These words of forgiveness cut Micheál even worse than the mad anger of Bulcán. Matha waited there a long time with the kneeling Micheál shaking like a wounded dog, listening to the gentle boys of peals. There was nothing Matha could think of doing, as he could not bring himself to try to drive the tragic, severed head from the tree. Eventually, the pleadings of the boy got more distant, and Matha stood again to part the branches and look inside the tree. The head was gone, but his relief lasted only a minute. Next, there was a small, shrill voice. In the branches appeared a beautiful woman of the little people, and she was keening her heart out. What ails the woman in Coine? Asked Micheál, putting his hands over his ears. Why, Micheál? Crede, said Micheál, looking all round him. You took my sweet, noble Micheál. He was an innocent. He followed you blindly, his hero, into the battle on Fair Hill, not knowing in his innocence that it was never a fight between good and evil. Not knowing that valour was no shield against death. His and all the other innocent lives were thrown away in a calculation, in a contest of wills and pride between you and another like you from Gaul. You spent his life for a manoeuvre, not for a cause. Is that not so? No, no, said Micheál. You don't understand. And then your own death, falling into the grave of your beloved Micheál. It moved every heart in the land. My people united with your people of the Danann stricken. And you left me with no chance to explain it all to you. All that had happened. Explain, she laughed. To the dead? When I fell down into his grave, I did not know that we would still be separated, even in the other world. The Danann and your people. But I understand everything now, Micheál. Do you not know that? I have time now, separated forever from Micheál. Time for bitterness, about Micheál and about other things. I have learned that my mistake was ever to trust anyone who was not from my own people. And do you know who has become my mate in bitterness here? One who has told me how the great Fionn Micheál got his position by killing him. A prince. Your people called him an ogre. Her face became twisted and ugly. That was not what happened. He was not. Alan was not a prince. Not princely. He is beneath you. I had no choice. Micheál spoke weakly. Please, Crede, understand. Understand? She screeched in a pitch that could tear the innards of any ears in the valley. Micheál and thousands of us, dead because of your pride. Matha turned to Micheál as the woman faded. He was lying on the ground now, curled up. Matha said to him, Fionn, we have to leave this valley. We must go the last piece of the way, just over the top of this hill, and there I am sure all of this will stop. I am certain of it. Micheál wasn't getting up, and all of this was not going to stop. This stream of people from Micheál's past, none of whom Matha had ever heard a single word spoken about. Next was a fine warrior, tall and broad, with his head armoured and his brown muscular chest bare. He was roaring from beside the rowan tree where he had appeared. He had a different accent again than Bulcán. Ógarmach, at your eternal service, Micheál. Ógarmach. Micheál lifted his head to listen. The fiercest soldier I ever met in combat. But what disrespect have I done you? Why do you not rest? Why do I not rest? The big man put his head right back and laughed a laugh that echoed from the sky. As I fell exhausted in the last, I asked for mercy in return for my service to you for eternity. People will say, and that's the queerest things to avoid dying, said Micheál quietly. Surely that is not a secret to you, a seasoned warrior with many killings to the credit of your own blades. What other people beg for and what I beg for are not the same thing to me, said Ógarmach. We each get only one life, and have to mind it carefully. But one death each, too, is assured. Only honour can live on, Micheál mumbled. Who would trade eternal honour for a few more years of empty life? By postponing your death on the terms that you betray your people, I would have extinguished your eternal honour. That is why cowardice is the worst vice. It wishes to protect the body over the spirit. Fine words that I do not understand at all. What use is honour? You can't eat it. It doesn't tell pleasant lies or give you a warm hug. What good is it when you're stopped breathing? I, a mere slave with no quarrel with you, begged you for my life. You gave me your honourable bronze in my chest as your answer. You're right. Micheál looked at him helplessly. What kind of man am I? Don't listen, Chief. Matha didn't know what it is that made him speak then. But he heard himself speaking, saying to Micheál, you are not the worst kind of man. Suddenly, they were both looking at him. Micheál in dazed confusion, and Ógarmach as though he were no more than a buzzing horsefly. Like lightning, Ógarmach drew a hand from his belt, and a hatchet came twirling through the air, and the blunt side hit Matha a terrible blow on the neck. Before he had even hit the ground, the giant had resumed his address to Micheál. Besides, you and your people here are great ones to preach. Do you not think the battle might have gone a different way for you, had you not the advantage of an enchanted spear and a heron skin bag full of protections? And you let me think I was fighting a mere mortal like myself. Where was the honour that day? What fairness? My face was certain before I ever lifted my sword. Micheál said nothing. And do you remember that after you pulled your blade back from within my heart, I stood and ran like a beheaded hen? I ran with eyes wide and my arms out, thinking I saw my mother, and I clutched at her, asking her to save me. But it was only you I was clutching, and you tried to shake me off. But I held on tight, looking up at you for my mother, and you stood there not even able to look down as I slid away off you. Matha had no idea at all how he might stop such a ferocious man should he draw his sword. Micheál lay prone on the ground. Matha picked up a large stone for each hand and stood in front of Micheál, determined to at least make dents on the giant's face when he approached. Well, kill me now while you have the chance, were the words Matha wished he was not hearing from Micheál. If that is what you wish for, since I failed you before, I will grant your wish on this occasion. That is no longer my wish at this moment, said the giant. That is your wish. Mine is to stay with you in this valley and watch your torments. Ogermach moved back a few paces down the hill. But the tree was not going to let Micheál rest. Next was an old man. He emerged from the ground and poked his stick into Micheál's head. He said, "How can you deceive my son and pretend that all is well between our families now?" "Leah," Micheál whispered. Matha was shocked as he realised who the son was that they were talking about. Micheál, come on. "My son thinks he's your closest friend now. You and yours have sweet-talked him into forgetting the honour of his own family. But don't think I have forgotten how you struck death into an old man to steal his purse." "The hern sack was mine, Leah," said Micheál. "You should have let go of it. You should have known you could not stand between me and that which my father had bequeathed me." "Ah!" exclaimed the old man, poking Micheál in the ear and then trying to put his eyes out with the stick. "One day, when you've been here long enough to lose all your senses, I will bring Conan for a glimpse of his great friend and show him the punishment for betrayal." "I betrayed nobody," said Micheál, not very adamantly. Then he looked pathetically back at Matha and asked, "Did I?" "What do I know about anything?" asked Matha. "Traitor? Fionn Micheál, am I a traitor?" said another voice, another person, standing right in front of Matha, about his own height. He was a soldier dressed in the ordinary tunic of a member of the Fianna. He had his sword drawn. Micheál looked up. For some reason, this was the first of the visitors he could see, and the first time Matha saw any spirit of life in him. He jumped to his feet and pulled his own sword. "I died. That is surely what you are, Micheál. I never thought I'd see your wicked face again. The son of an enemy invader, and I saved you. I brought you up as my own, trained you in the ways of the Fianna, gave you lands and wealth and all for you to turn on me and bring foreign armies to wreak great destruction in our lands. How was this betrayal? Did you not kill my father? To honour him was all I sought. All my life had only that one purpose. That is what we call loyalty, not betrayal. What kind of weakness is on your mind?" "I will not allow you to twist my recollection," said Micheál, drumming up a shaking anger. "But the great Fionn Micheál is different," continued the taunting soldier. "You are not as good as most soldiers at forgiving yourself for killing other people's sons. Because you have knowledge. How often do you curse that salmon? You have knowledge that sometimes you can't quieten. Deep down, you always know you are not blameless. That in fact you may be more guilty than many you have cut down. And this is not knowledge that is good for you, is it now, Fionn Micheál? It worries you sick that you aren't able to hold on to the same high standards that you preach. The only consistent person is a dead person, said Micheál. Allow me then to fix you, said Micheál, jumping forward. This time Micheál wanted to fight. He was raving and found the strength of a madman, desperate to silence this Micheál. His sword clashed with the sword of Micheál. It did not last long. Micheál was by far the faster and more powerful. Micheál soon tired from his defence. He fell over, and his voice changed to pleading. Micheál leapt in the air to bring his sword down on the dead man. As the metal pierced the defenceless body, driven by confusion, fear, and rage, he saw that it wasn't who he thought at all. Not Micheál, but a smiling face looking up at him and saying, Father, what are you doing to me? The name he uttered as he fell, weeping uncontrollably, was the first name that Matha recognised all day. The name that he had been told by Conan and Droleen should never be uttered in Fionn's presence. It was the name of his son who had been slain in a battle at the palace of the Rowans. Fiachna, Micheál sobbed, my darling boy, I would give the whole world. Matha didn't know what to say or do. He didn't know what worse would come. He took the sword from the ground where it was stuck since Micheál Fiachna had disappeared. With the beautiful instrument that had done so much damage in his life, and that had recently nearly killed himself, he started hacking at the magical tree. He knew very well that this was a terrible risk. Only misfortune followed those who cut her own. But somewhere vaguely inside him he hoped that whatever accursed ability had allowed him to see Micheál's parade of horror would also protect him from their own. Once he had started, he hacked and chopped with all his injured might, first cutting all the branches down and then going at the main trunk. The frenzy of his work soon made him stop feeling the pains in his head and chest and stomach. He didn't ease until it was in ribbons on the ground. And then he picked up the branches and flung them in every direction in frenzy. When he had composed himself, he sat next to Micheál and pleaded with him to find the strength to get on his feet and just put one foot in front of the other to get away from this valley of torture. But Micheál was still weeping and not able to move from the spot. "I will stay here forever," he said. "I cannot take them with me, and I cannot desert them again." "Get away from me, stranger," he said softly, looking at Matha with the eyes of a helpless child. "I have never done anything for you or for anyone else. You don't owe me any kindness. Save yourself. It's all over for me. You must leave this place. It will soon be night, and far worse anguish will creep in here under the blanket of darkness, and it will take you down into the pits of the earth along with me." As if by Micheál saying it, the long shadows began stretching across the valley. The sun disappeared from view over the western wall of this basin, and the longest day of Matha's life was coming to an end. As a shadow enveloped him, he was weak with fear of what would happen next. There was no way he could move the great hulk of Micheál's body to safety. He started thinking other thoughts. Micheál's mind was already gone. Why should he not then take his advice and save himself? Why should he stay here, putting himself in danger to save a mere living corpse, a wreck? A corpse at that which had so recently damaged him. He had been duped into coming here in the first place doing Drolene's work. He wasn't bound by bonds of love like Insa. He wasn't tied by oath and reinforced by innocent belief in good like Micheál. He was only here by trickery. How much did Drolene or any of them care about him? Yes, Drolene had some fondness for him. But he had not imagined that. But he was still prepared to sacrifice him in a vague hope that he could somehow save Micheál. As if he, a young man barely experienced in the world, could be expected to see a way. Thinking like this, Matha was building his strength. Soon he was only debating whether he should say farewell to the muttering lump on the ground or just leave without Micheál noticing. As he stood, he felt a breath on his back, and its distinct waft of decay stung his nostrils. It was too late. The first of the night visitations had started. At first he didn't dare turn to see. Another breath, and yet no taunting voice nor whining pitiful story, and he noticed the breath was slightly warm. He turned. What was there might have frightened him earlier that day, but now it seemed a comfort. It was Bulcán's injured, scrawny horse. Close up he saw an oozing gash the size of his head in the animal's chest, and one of its forelegs was dragging unnaturally, broken from an axe blow, no doubt, in the same battle that cost his master his life. At least the master was absent on this occasion, though Matha guessed he would not be far behind. The horse was not hostile to him. He knew horses well enough to see that. It was looking for his company. He noticed for the first time how big it was. He started wondering, was there any way he could ask this animal to help him with Micheál? But he put the idea away. The animal had its own misfortunes to deal with. It would be a further cruelty to ask it to try to pull this enormous bulk of dead weight on its 3 working legs and its wasted muscles. Then he heard the yells of Bolcán in the distance calling, "Percán, Percán, come to me, you useless donkey." Percán knew what Matha wanted and didn't wait for him to ask. He moved over in front of Micheál. Matha didn't think further. He patted the horse and looked in his eye, speaking softly to him. "You want freedom. Come with me. I'm no longer sure that my master is a much better one than your own, but I want him to get over that hill so he has a chance to repent for the injuries he has caused." Then he cut the ropes of Percán's bridle and tied them round Micheál's chest. Micheál didn't resist or even ask what Matha was doing. He was already dreading the return of Bolcán, whose voice was getting closer with every shout. He tied the rope to the leather rigging of Bolcán's heavy saddle. He had no faith. It would normally take 2 healthy horses to pull Micheál, and that was when he had wheels under him in a chariot. He was sure Percán was going to disappear into a pile of skin and skeleton as soon as the pull came. Anyway, he took hold of the rope so as to give what little help he could, and he said, "Good enough, my friend, whenever you are ready." Instead of collapsing, unseen muscle tensed inside Percán's skin. He heaved forward on his 3 legs, and Micheál swore as he fell over on his side. The horse took another step, and then, sensing he had to keep going, once he had his huge cargo moving, he put almighty heaving and snorting into it and started to gain speed up the stony hillside. Soon he was going so fast that Matha had to run to keep up. Micheál was knocking into tree stumps and bouncing off rocks like he was as light as a sack of wool. As fast as they went, the deformed Bolcán and the giant Ogremach were catching up quickly, and now they were almost at Micheál's heels. Micheál was delirious, shouting and laughing with every hard knock and scrape. "Oh, welcome, merciful closure, that is the way. Go ahead and pulverise my senses from me." Not a minute later, they were in a small outcrop of blackthorn bushes on the outer edge of a forest. Micheál was wedged between 2 large tree stumps. The horse had slipped out of the leather straps and ropes. All that was left of the beautiful animal was a moonlight shadow that Matha saw disappear into the trees beyond the valley. Back down the hill, Bolcán's voice was fading. A dog was barking in the distance. They were out. It took a while lying there on the ground in silence for Matha to trust that it was finished. It took Micheál even longer. But when he eventually sat up and looked around, he said, "Matha, is that you? What has you out on a wild night like this?" Matha didn't answer. Then Micheál broke the stumps that he was trapped between and stood up. He was confused. I'm not going to say anything bad about you, Matha, but would you think carefully before you explain to me how I'm covered in bruises and knotted up in horse ropes? What were you trying to do to me?" Matha still didn't answer. Then a cloud removed itself from the moon, and Micheál put Matha under closer scrutiny. "And you, with your bloody eyes and all hunched up, what happened to you?" "Can we go back to Tara and I will tell you there," Matha said. "Now that we are out on this fine night, we might as well wander a little," said Micheál. "There is a little valley that is the only one in Éireann that I have never set foot in. I set out looking for it last evening and lost track of time and thought, but I know it is not far from here. I am almost always warned by the Druids not to enter, but I am not afraid of the woeful warnings of priests. Come with me. I believe it is not far from here to the west." Matha looked up into Micheál's eyes and said, "You can go there alone, but I am going east." "What kind of talk is that?" said Micheál. "You talk just like one of the priests now with your dark muttering." "You can go there and revisit Bolcán," said Matha. Micheál looked round wildly for a moment. Then he grabbed Matha by the tunic and pulled him to him, whispering in panic, "How do you know about Balcán?" "Ah, I see Droleen has been telling you a few names to frighten me into coming home. Listen to me now, sonny. It's dangerous to splash another man's past into his face. Be fair wide. I don't know you well enough to miss you when I leave you for wild boar to eat. I'll go alone to the valley." Matha knew there was only the one way he could stop Micheál going back. He braced himself for another hammering as he continued. "And go and explain to Insa why you sent him to fight when in your heart you knew he was too gentle to defend himself. And explain to Fiachna why you can't take him and his foster brother home to rest." "Where did you learn my thoughts about Insa?" Micheál stopped moving. He dropped Matha. He whispered now like a dying man, "I never told anyone." "And Fiachna, what kind of dark spirit are you? Have you seen them? How are they?" He looked down at where Matha had fallen. "Now do you know what happened to my head and why I'm crumpled?" Matha picked himself up. "I was trying to save a lunatic from himself." The look Micheál gave Matha changed from anger to fear. "Nobody knows those things that have never escaped my nightmares. You know too much about me. Who are you really?" "Don't think further, but let us go to the east," said Matha. It was a very strange turn of events for Matha to have Micheál following his instruction meekly. They walked silently for a while. Only when they saw the fires of Tara ahead did Micheál get more life back in his step. While they were still in the silent shadows beyond the outer enclosure, Micheál stopped and turned to Matha. "I don't know exactly what you have seen, or how you have seen it, but can I ask you to keep it to yourself? I ask not as a commander. I ask as another person. What you have seen is mine alone to bear." "I will," said Matha. "One thing I am sure you understand now is why most soldiers love each other's company best. The people and the king want us to keep their peace and freedom. They do not want to know the price at which it comes. That knowledge is left for us soldiers to carry delicately between us. We keep busy and laugh, and we know what to celebrate and what to jeer about, and we also know what to never mention. A soldier grown in bravery is often a man whose internal enemies have started to become more terrifying to him than any external ones. Such a man is brave because he has gone from fearing death to calling out for its mercy. The best way for a soldier is to keep soldiering till he is killed by another." When the two of them entered the central camp, supporting each other, and went over to the fire, there was a commotion about their injuries. Brands and healers were asking what vagabonds had set upon them. Bards were asking what heroic exploits could be recorded for future generations. Droleen flew over and said to Matha, "Well, I take it you found him in the Valley of Regrets." Matha didn't answer. "I'm sorry, boy, but you were the best one I could send to rescue him. I guessed you'd be able to see the spirits. I would have gone there myself, but there's a savage three-legged horse in that valley, and, well, you made the mistake of mentioning that mad horse. Horses have a graw for you. That horse would have kicked me or anyone else to death." "Guessed? With every respect, great Droleen," said Matha, trying to bite back great anger. "It was only a stroke of luck that I didn't die with Micheál in there." "Well, you didn't, did you?" said Droleen with steel in his eye. What are you staring at? You think I should have put your safety above any other consideration? I'm not your mother. Matha was shocked. He had never seen such hardness in anyone here. Do you think the king provides the sheep you so ably help us to eat? Droleen continued. Only so that we can gather here every day for the purpose of shouting and telling lies? Protecting to the death is the job of every man and woman of the Fianna. There is no life here that cannot be thrown into that purpose. If you didn't learn that much in the valley, then this is not the place for you to be. I didn't say I would not have gone, said Matha. He probably wouldn't have. But his pain and injuries were enough that he didn't need Droleen's sore words on top of them. He added with some pleasure. Anyway, I have bad news for you. That savage horse is now at large in the woods on this side of the valley, and I won't be helping anyone who wants to harm him. He earned his freedom, more luck to him. Droleen was frowning about this news when they were interrupted by a laugh from Conan, who they hadn't noticed sitting at the back of the fire waiting for all the fussing about injuries and poultices to die down. That's the talk, lad. Don't let that miserable old warrior torment you. Then he stood up to shout across the camp at Micheál. Ah, Fionn Micheál, you big gum. You thought you could wander into the Valley of Regrets as if you were the only one of us with none. Ha! I hope they reminded you that the next time a big stout Gaul woman follows you home, you should send her straight back. Micheál gave his old friend Conan, the son of Leah, a slightly worried look. He rubbed his eyes and ears where Leah's stick had poked at them just a few hours before. Then he hesitantly joined the laughing.